G'day, it's Heath here from PickinLessons.com. Bobby Case is a really great little tune. In this banjo lesson, we're going to take a look at an intermediate arrangement of the tune using the melodic and single string techniques, and it's a great way of testing how you're going on the banjo. It's not overly hard, but it's certainly got all the techniques you want, sort of moving through an intermediate level. We're using the melodic technique, we're using the single string technique. There's different rhythm variations. There's also position changes as well. So there's a lot in there that we'll use, different ornamentation as well. So there's a lot in there that will really sort of test out where you're at. It's a nice tune, kind of early intermediate level. In a moment, we're going to take a look at part A of the tune here, get into it and break down the techniques so you know how to approach them. But if you head to PickinLessons.com, you better grab yourself a copy of the chart we're working from. The tablet is there. You'll also find the member section, part 2 of this lesson, and an MP3 play along and backing track as well. So PickinLessons.com. Let's start out now here though with a nice slow playthrough of part A. Then we'll break down the techniques, making sure that your right hand and your left hand are doing the appropriate things. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that was part A of the tune. We are in the key of A minor. We're almost in standard tuning. Our 4 strings, D, G, B, and D are regular, but our 5th string here, normally a G, we're going to tune that up to an A. So if you've got spikes on your banjo, pop it there onto that 7th fret spike, or if you don't have any spikes, you can just tune up your 5th string there, the peg up from G to an A. That's okay. So what we end up with is the D on string 4, G, B, D, and a high A there on string 5. So that's important, you really need to get that in the first place. So what we're going to do now is break down the techniques that we're using in this tune and really make sure you know how to approach them. We're starting out with this melodic technique. So this position of the melodic scale here, we're in A minor. The A minor scale is very similar to the G major scale, so the F sharp, the F is the only difference, so a lot of the notes are the same. So if you've played a G major melodic scale, this is pretty familiar. So starting off this tune here, you'll notice this position around the 5th fret. That's a really common position here on the banjo playing these melodic tunes, that 5th position. The positions we're covering in the tune we'll get to. We've got the open position, we've got the 5th position, meaning our first finger is going to be there at fret 5. We've also got 7th position, so we'll move up our first finger to fret 7 and cover that territory as well. So we've got 3 position changes. So the first one, so really just a great melodic passage there. Left hand can stay pretty still on those notes. You don't have to move around too much. Let the notes ring out. That's really important too. That sort of adds to the charm of the sound. In terms of the right hand, whenever you're using this melodic technique, make sure your thumb is playing the lowest string and then a finger plays the highest string. So pick up notes, for example, thumb, then finger. Into first note of the first measure, thumb, thumb, finger, thumb. Then open string with the finger. Looking at the rhythm there too, so pretty standard with the 8th notes, the quarter notes, the dotted quarter note into the quaver, the 8th note there at the end of the first measure, 3, 4, and. So a dotted quarter note is 1.5 beats. So beat 3, 4, and is that open string. Just have a listen for that one more time. From the pickup notes, ready, and 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and. So dotted quarter note. Be familiar with these rhythms. They come up in these melodic tunes all the time. Okay, measure 2. Measure 2, we're moving to this position here we mentioned earlier. So first finger's up to fret 7. Position 7, first finger. You'll have your 3rd finger on fret 9, and we also will need that 2nd finger on fret 8. So we're holding this 3-note chord, and we're working through the melody notes that we find in that position. So, and then we'll change position as we move on. Now, once we get to that position, we've got some rhythms we need to work on there. So we have 1 and a 2 and 3, 4, and. We have 16th notes. So 8th notes, 2 16ths, 8ths, and a quarter. 1 and a 2 and 3, 4, and is a way that we can count it. 1 and a 2 and 3, 4 and. And you may notice that this note here on fret 7 too is an A note. We've got an open A string as well, so we're actually doubling up 3 times. We're playing that note 3 times to catch the 16th. We could do it all on a single string, but we're using the open string for convenience. So the great thing about the tuning in the banjo is we use the open strings where we can. Sometimes we can't sort of do that, so we'll use fretter notes as well. Combination of will make it easier. So in this case, this example here, we've got a high A on string 1 and a high A on string 5, which makes it relatively easy for the right hand. Thumb, middle, index, thumb. Middle and index to catch those 2 open strings. Great, so far I've got a bit of melodic, position changes as well, different rhythms. Third measure, we're looking at single string. We're going to move back down to the open position, working on some single string position. We've got lots of doubling notes here, so the way we're going to approach it is with the single string technique in the right hand. Thumb, index, thumb, index, thumb, index. Just keep alternating. We're going to play thumb on the downbeat, index on the offbeat. So 1 and 2 and thumb, index, thumb, index. So very single string. Whenever you're playing single string, particularly like in a reel or something pretty straight like this, you'll find that the thumb and the index, 1 and 2 and works really well. There are times where that's got to flip and you might have to change it slightly, but as a standard approach, that works really great. So one more time, measure 3. Then, as we move into measure 4, we've got to change position again, back up to position 5. A little bit of melodic, then just a nice backward forward roll. So right hand there's pretty straightforward, remembering finger, thumb for the melodic, then a roll, middle, index, thumb, index. Just one thing before we just talk about what we've covered so far, that rhythm there at the beginning of measure 4, dotted 8th note, 16th. 1 E and a 2. 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 So just get familiar with how that sounds. Ready and. So nice amount of rhythm variation so far in the tune. Familiarize yourself with how those sound and then relate that back to how we read that as well. That will really help for when you're learning tunes in the future. So really, each measure, we've kind of had to change techniques, whether it's position changes or right hand technique change. So this is a really good benchmark, this tune, moving into more of an intermediate level. I think it's a really nice benchmark to sort of measure yourself to see where you're at. If you can cover these techniques reasonably well and you're pretty fluent changing and position changes, right hand technique changes, you're doing okay. So you can move through some more difficult tunes, I think. Let's finish this off. We kind of do a similar thing on the second half. So at measure 5, really is the variation of measure 1 in that melodic position there. So third finger, thumb, finger, thumb, hold it, dotted quarter note again. Back into measure 6, this position from earlier, position 7. Identical to measure 2. Measure 7, we go into a single string position again. So remember the single string, we had thumb, index, index. We can hold those notes there. Then the roll for the G chord. Very similar to before. And then this time to finish off here in measure 8. More single string. Thumb, index, thumb, pick up note to get us back into the repeat. And then the second time, the second ending is different. We'll cover that in the next lesson. Okay, so Bobby Casey's great benchmark tune, I think, for the intermediate player. If you can cover these techniques, you know these rhythms, you can find your positions fairly comfortably, get your fingers into place. The right hand kind of adjusts to the techniques you need, and you're not getting too lost there. You're doing really well. There's some nice rhythm variations in here at the same time. In the second half of the tune, we have very similar ideas, same rhythm variations, same positions, although we have some hammer-ons in there we can look at as well. And obviously the melody is slightly different. So head over to pickinlessons.com. We'll continue to break this down for part B. You've got the backing track and a play along track there as well in the members section. pickinlessons.com. I'll see you there.